Hello everyone! So I'm in the back of my vehicle. Normally I'm at the front, and so this is a little bit of a different setup. So really quickly, I'm just going to talk about how I was able to fund my 1,000 plus miles, technically 2,000 plus miles, going and coming from Sedona, Arizona to Washington and then back with Instacart. So before I get into that specifically, I will say that I was able to do a tarot reading for one of my friends for $50. So that really helped me actually get from Portland, Oregon into Washington, because I was able to get a full tank of gas, or kind of full, mostly full. I was able to help, that same friend actually helped me with borrowing me about $20 at times, like 2 different times when I asked for $10, just to be able to get enough gas to get to do an Instacart order. And then another friend borrowed me $20, so in total about like $40 extra to keep going at times where I was kind of stranded. So starting off, before I left Sedona, I did do like 1 or 2 orders that were about, I think, $40 or $50 that day, and I immediately just got gas. It was kind of like a get up and go. A lot of my travels are like that. I kind of feel that urge to get moving, and after like a day of deliberating it, I was like, you know what, I really just want to live my life. I really I can't hold myself back. I am not someone who holds on to money very easily, because I tend to get little amounts, and it immediately goes towards food, laundry, gas, like whatever needs I have. So I'm not operating with savings. I'm not operating with any form of financial abundance. A lot of people will see that as being very irresponsible, which it is, but at the same time, if I had stayed in Sedona or whatever and just kept trying to earn enough money to be able to travel, I probably would have been stuck here for the entire month in which I was actually traveling. You know, I would have been spending each day trying to earn and earn and earn. And a lot of people can do that, and a lot of people are okay with that. I don't have a full-time job, and I'm trying to manifest a van right now, so pretty soon Instacart isn't even gonna be an option. But with that being said, it's more like, this is to show you that you can do something like that if you really wanted to. I wouldn't recommend it necessarily. I would recommend either, as I describe my journey, either staying in towns a little bit longer and earning more money, or kind of having a little bit more to work with from the beginning. So yeah, my initial trip going up to Washington took about 2 to 2.5 weeks. I started in Sedona. I got to Las Vegas in the first day. That was about I think 3 or 4 hour trip. I'm not even gonna try to say time, because I don't know. But I went from Arizona to Las Vegas. I did a couple orders in Las Vegas just to recoup my gas, get some money for food, and to be able to move forward. So each stop that I made, for one, I used Instacart's map. When you choose all stores, the option for all stores on that main page, you are able to then see all stores, and when you zoom into certain cities or places, you can see how many stores there are. So in my trip going up to Washington, I really tried to, one, look for big cities, or cities that were big enough that Instacart was present there, and 2, I went within small distances. So this trip coming back, actually, I made a lot more progress in a lot shorter time, but going up, I was kind of hipping and hopping and skipping, and so it was literally a few 100 miles each time. So I went from Las Vegas, I went kind of south a little bit into California, lower California, and then I worked my way kind of throughout the middle and then up to the coast, and I stayed along the coast the entire trip up to Washington. So I stayed on like in places like Venice Beach. I didn't actually stay. I stayed for like a few hours and then I got up and went. I can't really kind of describe what motivates me to keep going. A lot of people kind of try to pace themselves. Some places I stayed for longer, but most areas, like every city I went to, I pretty much stayed there like a day and then I kept going. Some places felt safer than others. Some places, you know, I got there and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna keep driving. So it wasn't like I was like saying, okay, it didn't really pre-plan every area before I left. It was as soon as I got to the main place, I was like, okay, Las Vegas, okay, where's the nearest place that I can go to? How much money? Like once I got a substantial amount of money to get a lot, like over a half tank of gas, then I'd be like, okay, how far can I get with like 200 miles, you know? And so I went that way and I kind of looked at, you know, how far I could go, what cities, and pretty much, you know, weekdays were definitely slower, but pretty much every place I went to, I was able to get at least 1 or 2 orders that kept me going. In terms of staying overnight in places, I pretty much stayed at Planet Fitnesses that were 24 hours or any 24-hour gyms, and 24-hour supermarkets as well as travel stops. So those were the 4 types of places that I stayed in. Anything else kind of felt a little weird or risky. I haven't ever, like, this trip was the first time I ever got a knock, and it was only once, and it was because I went to a 24-hour fitness that on Apple Maps was listed as 24 hours, but in reality it wasn't 24 hours. So luckily, like, I was able to pretty much sleep throughout the night up until I got the knock at 4 a.m. and I just kept traveling when I got woken up. So it was pretty good. Let's see. So I traveled along the coast. Each stop I did, Oregon was a little bit more difficult. Because I stayed in Eugene, Oregon, and Oregon is freaking beautiful, I will say. In all the states I've been to, definitely one of my favorites. But in terms of getting orders, it was a little bit more like time of like waiting for orders, and when they came, I just, like, no matter how big or inconvenient or whatever, I just took it. So for the most part, like, in California, there was a benefit of, I mean, California is super dense in a lot of areas with Instacart, so a lot of like the smaller cities I stayed in, it was easier to get orders, but the tips aren't great in California, I've noticed, depending on where you are. However, with shopping in California, you do have the benefit of getting kind of like a reimbursement the following week, so that actually helped me out. Even after I left California, the following week I got like a little bit of money. I think I got like $36, but you know, that also helped me keep moving, so I was appreciative of that. So yeah, I basically did the entire trip, going up to Washington. I wasn't really planning to go any specific places in Washington. From a more spiritual perspective, I think that the entire journey really was meant to kind of open my eyes to a lot of things. It was a lot of soul searching and a lot of things revealed to me. And if you're into astrocartography at all, looking at the ley lines of that journey, a lot of it kind of corresponded to my Mars line, or one of my Mars lines, and there was just some really cool things energetically that I think I was meant to go up there for that reason, to get kind of like energetic upgrades and stuff. So it was a fun journey. It was very beautiful. Washington, very beautiful, very rainy on the western side of the mountains, but it was still very beautiful. The forests there were freaking enchanting. I really loved it. And my journey back, it was really strange because I went into Idaho for one night. Didn't really feel super comfortable there. It was very beautiful. I just personally, on a intuitive level, didn't feel comfortable there. So I kind of turned around, went back into Washington. And I don't know, as soon as I got back into Washington, I was going to make a trip up to Crystal Falls. Didn't really work out because it started raining and it was super, like, my gas was already running out, and I was like, I'm not gonna be able to make this trip and get back to Spokane. And this was at one of the points where I had to ask one of my friends, like, hey, can you like give me like $10 so I can get to Spokane? And I did. And then literally from then on, that was a trip back. So basically it was like, okay, Washington was a little bit more of like hops and skips again. So I went to literally all the same cities and towns that I had stayed in going through. So I went from Spokane to somewhere called Moses Falls, Moses Lake, I think. Yakima. And then from Yakima, not even in Yakima, the first time around I stayed in Yakima. The second time I stayed a little bit northward. It was late at night. I took like this $20 order right before, like, I got to the truck stop. I got this $20 order when I was already on empty, and I just like rushed and did it, went back to the truck stop, slept overnight. And then the next day I was like, okay, I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna go through the mountains now. That's really like the largest portion of the trip, from getting from one side of the mountain in Washington to the other side. So once I got, like, I think I got another order. If not, I had enough fuel range to get to the other side. And then I went to Tacoma, stayed there. I don't know if I stayed there the full night. I remember just being like no, I did stay there overnight, but I woke up pretty early the next morning. I stayed at a 24-hour fitness. After my experience in California pretty early in my trip with getting that knock, I was really like on edge every time I stayed at a gym, because I was just like, I don't want to get like, you know, be asked to move, because a lot of the times when I stopped, I had little to no gas, and so in order to keep moving, like, I would need to get another order. Luckily in Tacoma, I think I had just enough to get to Olympia, which is the first town I stayed in Washington. But by the time I got to Olympia, I was pretty much at empty again. So this was another point where I had to ask one of my friends, like, hey, can you send me like $10? And he sent me $20. So from Olympia, I was like, I hightailed it to Portland, because I knew I would at least be able to get orders. I wasn't in Portland. I was like a little bit south in Lake Oswego. Beautiful, most beautiful freaking town I've ever seen. Oh my god. Definitely my favorite place, besides Thousand Oaks, California, but definitely one of my favorite places. It was so gorgeous. So I went there. I think I stayed like 2 days, and then not even 2 days, but I got like enough to fill my tank, like fill my tank. Like, I didn't even realize that my tank had 400 mile fuel range. I got up to like 392 with the fill up that I got, and I was like, I didn't even know it went up that high. Because obviously when I'm filling up my gas tank, it's always with like a limited amount of money, so it's like, whoa. And literally with that, I was able to get from basically Portland, Oregon to middle of California in Redding, California. Nothing wrong with Redding, California. I don't know what it was energetically with coming back, but I did not want to be in California whatsoever when I came back. And also realizing, like, as I was traveling, that the route that I took coming up was all coastal, And so I was a little confused why I was just seeing mountain ranges and snow on my trip back. And then I realized, oh shit, I'm going like through the middle of the states. And so when I got to Redding, California, I was just like, it was already like kind of like the kind of town where I'm like, I don't feel like I'm gonna get a lot of orders here. I did get a few orders, and then I was like, as soon as I get enough, again, only stay there one night and a few hours into the afternoon. As soon as I got the money to get to Las Vegas, I hightailed it. So that's literally how I did the whole journey. As soon as I got to one place, I calculated how far I wanted to go next, and then once I got enough gas money for that, that's when I like made the trip. I didn't stay extra. I didn't like spend more time in places than I really felt needed. I think the place that I probably stayed the longest in was Oregon. As a state, I think, well, Oregon and Washington, I think those are the two states where I've spent the most days. California also took like quite a bit to get through. But I think like in terms of how it felt, like I think California was easier for me to get, like do those little hops a little bit easier, because I just did one or two orders per place, and I was able to go a few more miles. But once I got to Oregon, I think that's where I stayed a little bit longer. Again, really beautiful place. I do wish, like, especially if I do manifest a van, I'm trying to, I would love to go back and camp along the coastal area, because it was so beautiful. It was like, there were like little pitons. I'm from St. Lucia, so we have the two pitons, but like basically like these little mountains that are coming out of the ocean, and there were so many pullouts. The speed limit was so freaking slow, and it was irritating. But I will say, it helped me preserve my fuel. Like, I think one tank of gas definitely lasted me the longest in Oregon because of just the slow speed limits along the coast and like the small towns. But there were a lot of pullouts. It was pretty much all like national forests, so definitely on my list of places to go back to is in Oregon. But yeah, that is pretty much how I financed my trip to Washington. That's like over 2,000 miles. I can't really estimate specifically because I did take 2 different routes. But it's roughly like 17-18 hours total going to and from, so about 36, let's say 40 hours of driving, just with all the little different stops I made. So 40 hours of driving, 2,000 plus miles, basically along the entire coast, and it's doable. It was an interesting experience. There were times I enjoyed it, and there were times I didn't enjoy it. But those are the places I didn't stay too long in, so it's definitely doable. I definitely suggest it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.